Chapter 14. Captain Newport does not return in October with new supplies, but instead of being hungrier, we have finally gotten through the sickness and we are healthy again. The tribes who are our friends must have convinced our enemies to stop attacking us, and it is no longer dangerous to leave the fort to hunt or fish. We have a pitiful harvest of wheat and vegetables from our gardens, but the Indians often bring us food from their own harvest to trade. The air is filled with birds flying south for the winter, and it is easy to shoot enough for a meal. We have more rain, and the river water is good to drink. Captain Smith has been put in charge of trading with the Indians. If we ever run short of corn or meat, he takes a few men and some beads, copper for trading, sails off into a shallop for a few days to visit some of the Indian villages. They always come back in the shallop full of supplies. Captain Smith is also in charge of getting houses built for all of us. With the weather turning colder, we can't keep sleeping in our rotting tents. He sets for us the goal of houses for everyone and cheers us on, exhorting us to push ahead. We work hard together. Captain Smith always works the hardest, with some felling trees, some splitting wood for clapboard, some cutting reeds for thatch. We use shaped timbers to frame houses, and the carpenters teach us how to weave sticks together to make mesh, then coat the mesh with a mixture of river clay and straw to make wattle and dub walls. We bundle the reeds to make thatched roofs. I've never helped to build a house before, and it makes me proud to see my work. I see what Captain Smith meant about needing to stand on my many legs to survive. We have to work together. I would never be able to build a house all by myself. Some of the gentlemen work with us, too, until their hands are rough as commoners' hands. By the time the weather turns cold, we have put up warm, dry houses for everyone, even the servants. In early December, Captain Smith chooses 9 men to sail with him in the shallop up the Chickahominy River. They're hoping to find the passage to the Pacific and the Orient, and they think that the Chickahominy might lead to them. When I ask Captain Smith why this passage to the Pacific is so important, he says, "The nobles in England want spices, silks, and ivory. The best place to get them is the Orient, China, and India. Between the England and the Orient is ever going east over land. There are the Ottoman Turks. The Turks gladly sell us all the Chinese silks and the Indian spices that we want. They buy it for the tuppence and then sell it to England for bags of gold. If we can find a way to the Orient over the ocean going west, we can skip using the Turks altogether, and that would make Virginia Company investors very happy and very rich." Captain Smith and his men leave on the frosty morning, and we all wish them well. Once Captain Smith is gone, though, the gentlemen stop working, and even the common men shirk their chores. If it wasn't for us servants, the food wouldn't get cooked, and the water wouldn't get toted, and the wood wouldn't get chopped for the fires. One cold morning in mid-December, Richard and I are working with the embers that are all that is left of our cabin's fire, trying to bring them to flame. Richard sprinkles dry moss on the embers, and I blow them softly. At the first hint of flame, we add twigs. It feels good to be cooperating with Richard and to be his friend. "Come on, fire," Richard coaxes. I rub my hands together to warm them. It was Abram and Henry's turn to feed the fire during the night, but they, just like everyone else, didn't think much of chores because John Smith was gone. The twigs catch, and we add some bigger chips of wood, keep blowing, and soon we have a good fire going. I cough on the smoke. We don't have a proper hearth with a chimney like Mum and I used to have in our cottage. This is a circle of stones on our dirt floor, and to let the smoke out, there is a hole in the top of the eaves. Our cabin is always smoky. It doesn't even have any windows, and it has begun to leak in heavy rains, and it is still a lot better than the rotting tent. Within minutes, there is a voice at the door. "We need an ember," comes the demand. Richard and I look at each other. Every morning it's the same. As soon as anyone sees smoke coming from our cabin, they come for embers because they let all their fires go completely out during the night. I open the door and find Master Crofts dressed in his thick wool cassock and looking rather blue-lipped from the cold. I take the spoon, fish out an ember from the fire, and send him away. He doesn't even thank me. "I think they'd freeze if they didn't have us around," I say. "And starve," says Richard. Next comes Master Holgrove, then Master Firth, and Nathaniel, who has become a soldier, asking for an ember for the soldiers' cabin. "Look how disciplined our soldiers are," Richard says after Nathaniel leaves. Richard puts an ember into the pan to take to Reverend Hunt in case his fire goes out too. I go to see if anyone has bothered to start the hominy and the big communal cookpot. I hear one of the guards call out, "Is the shallop returned? Hello, explorers! Have you found the passage to India?" Captain Smith must be back, so I rush to the fort gates, and 6 men come trailing in. They are tired, dragging their muskets as they walk, and there is not a smile among them, and Captain Smith is not with them. And they come to the communal cook fire to warm themselves. There Abram is stirring the big pot of hominy, a porridge we make from coarse ground corn. The rest of us gather around. We listen as they give the report. The river became too narrow to explore with the shallop, and Captain Smith went off with 2 men, Jahau Robinson and Thomas Emery, to find the Indian guide in a canoe, but he didn't return. Indians captured one of their men, George Casson. The last they saw of him, he was tied to a stake with a fire being built around him. They were glad to escape with their lives. I listened, and my heart began to sink lower and lower. Has Captain Smith been captured by the Indians as well? Has he too been killed? Abram scoops the hominy into the mess pots, but I don't want to eat. I leave the fort and go down the river bank. There was a hoar frost from last night, and all of the bare branches are coated white and sparkling. I walk along the river a little way, then sit down on a jumble of tree roots and look out across the dark water. What will happen to me now? I have seen how Henry and Abram have been treated since Master Wingfield was put under arrest. It is as if they were suddenly declared every gentleman's servant, always washing someone's stockings, fetching that one's firewood. President Ratliff sometimes put them on double watch shifts so they get no rest, and they go around with red eyes and bad tempers. But being overworked would not be the worst of it. No, the worst would be losing someone I have grown to trust and care about. I pick up a small stone and throw it sidearmed, making it skip across the water. 5 skips. Richard and I should have a contest, and I'm suddenly very grateful that Richard is now my ally, not my enemy. Reverend Hunt, too. I am thankful he is still with us. Without the 2 of them, I would have no one to care whether I live or die. In London, it was easy to survive on my own, rummaging in garbage for my meals. Here, it is better to have a few people to stick up for you and make sure you get your food rations. More legs to stand on, Captain Smith would say. I hear crunching, footsteps in the frozen dead leaves covering the ground. It is Richard. He is carrying my bowl and spoon. He hands me the steaming bowl of hominy and sits next to me. Thank you, I say. I am very hungry now. It would have been miserable to go all day without breakfast. He nods, wraps his arms around his knees, and rests his chin on them. Maybe he will still come back, he says. Maybe. When my bowl is empty, I pick up a flat stone. How many skips can you do, I ask. Richard grins. More than you, that's for sure. We gather stones, and the contest is on. The letter comes just before Christmas. 3 Indian messengers bring it to the fort gates, and I rejoice to see it in Captain Smith's handwriting. I am well, the letter says. Fire the cannons and a few rounds from your muskets to scare these fellows, and give them a handful of beads and rounds of copper and 5 hatchets, which is what I promised to give them the Pumpkies. I run to tell Reverend Hunt and Richard. He's with the Pumpkies, I explain. They're one of the friendly tribes. I see he still has a paper and quill with him, says Reverend Hunt. He must be still writing our story, I say, beaming. Just after the new year of 1608, Richard goes out before me to start the cook pot of hominy for our communal breakfast. He comes back not 5 minutes later, his face white as linen. It's gone, he whispers, the corn, all of it. What do you mean, I ask? Yesterday there was plenty, and enough for 2 weeks at least. Richard shakes his head. I looked for the barrel of smoked meat, too, and the baskets of dried oysters. Gone. I feel the blood drain from my face. Are the natives now stealing our food instead of bringing it to us? Or have raccoons and foxes got into our stores? But we had men on guard all night. I run out of the cabin to see for myself, and Richard is right. The food is gone. Then I notice something else. The fort is eerily quiet. There's hardly anyone around. The only activity is 2 laborers chopping firewood, and a soldier sitting outside his cabin cleaning his musket. The sun is already up, and the gentlemen should have been grumbling for their breakfast. The day is quite cold, with a pale winter sun, and yet not a single gentleman has come to our cabin for an ember. Where are they, I demand, fear growing in the pit of my stomach. Who? Richard asks. The gentleman.